We're live now.
Hello, welcome to the North of Tyne Cabinet meeting. This is, we have a very busy agenda today, so we'll get straight cracking on with it. We have a full house. We have no apologies for absence, but Councillor Forbes will have to leave early. I'm sure as everybody watching at home will know, these are very, very busy times, and we all have a lot of demands dealing with the current crisis. So with that said, we'll move on to item 2. There are no declaration of interest that have been formed of. So I believe that's the case, in which case we'll move straight on to the next formal item of business, which is the minutes of the meeting held on the 28th of July this year. There seem to be a correct record to me. Is that agreed? Thanks. I see lots of nodding heads. That's agreed. Okay, thank you. So let's start with the substantive items of business. First of all, I'd very much like to welcome Lucy Winscote, who's been appointed as the new chair of the North East Local Enterprise Partnership. Our relationship with the businesses in our area is very close and essential, obviously, to maintaining not only that strong economy, but that inclusive and green economy that we're all hoping to be creating. So welcome, Lucy.
Thank you very much.
And we have with us new cabinet members from Northumberland. So congratulations on your new appointments to Councillor Glenn Sanderson, the leader, and Councillor Richard Dodds, the Deputy Leader of Northumberland.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Looking forward to Northumberland continuing to play a full part in the combined authority. So we have at the moment, the government has cancelled the budget, but there's a comprehensive spending review. And we've placed our own submission into that, which is a very ambitious submission to build the sort of economy that we need coming out of COVID. And our Director of Economic Growth, Henry Kippin, is going to run us through a short presentation on this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and hi everybody. And I'm relying on my colleague Paul to pull up a presentation as we speak. Paul, would you mind? So hopefully everybody can see that. Please wave at me if you can't see that. It's certainly there on my screen. So what I'm going to do over the next 5 or 10 minutes is just to run through what we've called building the post-COVID economy, a devolution and recovery deal for the North of Tyne. And as the Mayor says, this outlines our propositions for the comprehensive spending review. It outlines our propositions to enable an effective recovery from the impacts of COVID for the North of Tyne. We are doing this as a mayoral combined authority along with our fellow mayoral combined authorities. We're one of 9. And of course, our M9 partners are submitting similar deals that reflect situation in their own areas. And it's also worth saying at the outset that we are very strongly aligned with efforts going on across the North East as a whole, convened by our 2 combined authorities, our LEP, universities, voluntary sector and other stakeholders to develop North East wide recovery propositions. And there's some really good, strong alignment in there. The propositions I'm about to walk through have been developed really quite collaboratively with our cabinet fully involved all the way through and our stakeholders. There is also a strong backstory, which I hope that you'll recognise in the original economic vision for the combined authority, the Mayor's manifesto and the steer that you've given as a cabinet up until now. So if you go to the next slide, please, Paul. I wanted to start by giving a little bit of context, which you all know because we're all living it day to day. I wanted to pick out 4 things here which are really important to the recovery plans. The first is a changing COVID picture. We know over the last 2 weeks or so, and we know from the Mayor's introduction that we are facing new localised regulations, guidance, or mix of the two, and there's been some really good, bold cross-regional collaboration to be proactive in the face of that, and as part of what is a nationwide adaptation to a virus that isn't going away anytime soon. What we're asking for here is investment that will match the scale of that adaptation that we're having to do as a North of Tyne and as a wider region. We know the economic context is evolving. We're still understanding the impact of coming off of a furlough scheme. We've seen more announcements this morning around jobs and skills from the PM, which we'll take stock of, but we know that economic recovery remains fragile. We're not dealing with a V here. We're not going to bounce back straight away. This is about a medium to long-term adaptation and a renewal and a recovery, and you'll see that emphasised in the piece. We know there are ongoing risks here. We're doing this with open eyes as a cabinet and an executive team. risk around second wave, risk around the economic uncertainty. We've got Brexit to follow, but that is not to say that this is a council of doom, quite the opposite, actually. So what we wanted to put on the table was a set of proposals which are about positive change and how we use this moment to flip into a different model of growth, the creation, protection and creation of jobs, better regional connectivity and co-investment and better services for residents that reflect that net zero and inclusive economy that as a cabinet you've steered us towards over the last year or so in particular. Next slide, please. So what you can see on this slide is a game of two halves, really. This is a North of Tyne and a wider North East proposition. We're submitting our recovery proposals to government. As we said here, we're calling for a fundamentally cleaner, more inclusive recovery, and we're talking about an investment and a set of devolution powers and policies that match the scale of that recovery. So for the North of Tyne, that's a £1.1 billion deal. For the wider North East as a whole, you can imagine that number is substantially increased. And the North of Tyne deal builds on what we are doing already. We're not starting from scratch at all across the whole region, particularly here in North of Tyne. We're building on the progress we've made so far. We're building on progress in particular around transition to a low carbon economy, some of the fundamental and foundational investments we've made in inclusive economy and support for those that are marginalised and furthest from the labour market. We think that's really important. In terms of the wider North East deal, we are absolutely 100% supportive of that really strong collaboration from Durham to Northumberland and the transport and connectivity elements of that in particular, which come through really strongly in that wider regional deal. Next slide, please, Paul. A bit on COVID impacts, which you all feel in your places. These are human impacts, they're public service impacts, they're economic impacts. We know that this has been 6 months of really taking stock of quite a serious scenario. We know that existing inequalities have been exacerbated. You can see that in terms of the impact on particular ethnicity, the gender impact, the economic inequality impact of COVID. We know that that's countrywide and in this region is no different. In terms of our particular economic position, we have lots of strengths, but we also have particular weaknesses as well. Around 29%, for example, of our workforce was furloughed. That's quite high by national comparison. So obviously the impact of coming off of that, we're expecting to be high here. We've had a substantial uptick in unemployment, which may be temporary, maybe longer term, and it's our job to roll in and make sure it's that the former and not the latter. And we know that footfall in our places has decreased, in our high streets, in our big urban centres, in our market towns as well. Everybody's having to adapt to what is really tricky times in terms of understanding how to protect existing businesses and protect the public at the same time. Next slide, please. So in terms of our response to these impacts, this is the meat and drink really of the proposal. We pulled out 5 areas that we think are really fundamental, and the wider submission, which you don't go into in huge detail here, gives chapter and verse on what we would like in these areas. I'll just go through them very quickly. First is jobs and skills and livelihoods. We talk about here a bold human capital strategy to save jobs and underpin long-term inclusive growth. This is about the people impact and prioritising the people that are at the sharp end of this. Jobs, skills, addressing education gaps. We need more devolution. We need better system join up in order to do that. Secondly, we've emphasised our transition to what we've called the future economy, which we're already making. Again, we're not starting from scratch across the North of Tyne and the wider North East in terms of clean energy, digital, our export readiness, and that arc of innovation that we've described stretching along the Tyne and up to Blythe. Absolutely, that's front and centre of our proposals. We've also pulled out a number of practical shovel-ready initiatives as the language that we're encouraged to use at the moment in order to exemplify that and hopefully accelerate some of that investment. Thirdly, we've picked up on what we need to do to support our businesses, high streets and places, in particular here building on really good progress around our Brownfield Fund under the Housing and Land Board's supervision. We've called for an expanded High Streets Fund, and we've called for some fundamental investments in shoring up the rural economy and the connectivity that underpins that. We have also pulled out what has always been a very close relationship between health and wealth, but we think will be even more fundamental to recovery in calling for some fiscal innovation and health and prevention related investments. We have in there a proposition around a health and growth fund, for example, which we think is a real innovation and reflects the fact that the only possible way of having a sustainable and growing place is to make sure it's healthy and safe and secure, and that means more now than it ever has. And then lastly, we pick out transport, infrastructure, connectivity, fundamentally underpins everything that we're talking about here. We pull out this concept of the digital commute, which I think we're all experiencing personally as well, partly home, partly in transit, partly in offices. If we're not going back to what previously used to count as normal, then we will have to have the investment in digital connectivity in particular that's going to underpin that. So you'll find lots of really, I think, quite bold investments in there that Cabinet have steered us towards, which reflect also the fact that we're a region that can deliver at scale for government. If we look at DWP, HMRC, the NHS presence up here, there's a massive opportunity for us to effectively support this North Shoring agenda and support our recovery and growth through those means. Next slide, please. There is some detail here, which I won't go into bit by bit, but you'll see this is 1.1 billion worth of proposals. Now, you know, to some extent, this is pick a number in terms of what it's going to take to recover effectively, but we do think that in order to effectively level up, there is an order of investment here that we haven't seen before within the region, and this is the North of Tyne's really proposition about what that might need to look like. I've talked about jobs and skills and livelihoods. We already have existing propositions around joined up employment support and our education challenge, in particular, adult education, that is devolved to us at the moment that we know we can deepen. We pick out our investments in the future economy, in digital connectivity, in our towns and our places, and we have more than 250 million worth of investment, which we think is viable and can create jobs today and tomorrow. We've talked about building on our housing and our towns and place element of our current programme, and we also bring out here the public services and prevention element of what we're doing, recognising that innovation in public services is going to be really fundamental alongside the economic activity, and that without sustainable local government underpinning a combined authority, there is no combined authority. So we're really four square behind efforts from our local authorities and across the wider country around this proposition about future sustainability of local public services. And then, as I've said, long-term transport investment. We know that there is the potential to unlock for the region an order of investment here that we're going to need in order to expand what we have in terms of our light rail connectivity, to make the buses work better for us, and fundamentally to bring in that digital piece in a way that is much more joined up. Next slide, please. So if that gives a flavour of what is in the proposition, and as I say, there's reams of lovely detail on what these schemes mean that we will be working with officials on. But the question is really what happens next. This is a proposition. This isn't a done deal by any means. We're putting this on the table and we're hoping to work closely with government to deliver that. So it's worth asking what happens now. Well, first of all, I wanted to emphasise, and I'm sure that Cabinet would ask me to emphasise, that we will continue to deliver, invest, add value on the basis that we currently are. So we've brought forward resources for COVID recovery in the North of Tyne in the short run. And if you top up the numbers, we have around 80 million or so worth of investment cutting across our Green New Deal, our offshore sector, digital investments, climate innovation, culture, tourism, housing. So there is something really important about making sure that we deliver on the promise of the North of Tyne Combined Authority as set out by you as a Cabinet, and we'll absolutely focus primarily on doing that. Secondly, we're going to prioritise inclusive economy policies and investments that make a difference now. So I've pulled out working with DWP on Kickstart, innovation in adult education, which Councillor McCarthy will come to, and the Inclusive Economy Innovation Fund. But really what we've committed to as a combined authority is to do absolutely as much as we can to roll in and protect as many jobs as possible, to give people as many opportunities as they can, for those that have lost their jobs, to get new ones. And our investment will be combined with central governments in that space. And then looking forward for the comprehensive spending review, as the Mayor said, there is some uncertainty here around where a budget, a spending review and a white paper will align, or how they will align. But we know that at least two out of those three will happen. And we'll do three things really in advance of that. One is we'll keep collaborating across the region. This is a North of Tyne proposition, but as I've explained, it sits within a wider regional piece in which collaboration with our colleagues south of the Tyne, the LEP and others is really fundamental. And we will make sure we keep playing an active role in that collaboration, which I think we've certainly done so far. Secondly, we will submit our proposals. We actually have submitted our proposals, both at a ministerial and an official level. The task now, as outlined briefly earlier, is to work with officials on translating this into real investment and delivery. We understand, of course, there's no one-to-one relationship here. This is not blank check territory. We will do absolutely what we can to be as clear as possible, as quickly as we can, so that we can make sure we understand what we might get out of this process as a region. And then lastly, I've talked about the timeline, but this really is adapting to a shifting set of events on the ground. Certainly the steer that Cabinet gave to myself and others in developing what is a really important team effort was that we need to be ready. We need to adapt. We need to move quickly. We need to create the funding vehicles that we can use to invest where and when we need. And the more we can continue to do that, the better shape we'll be in terms of supporting people through recovery. So Mayor, Cabinet, I'll leave it there at that point. There's plenty more detail under the hood, but I think that gives hopefully gives a quick précis.
Thank you very much, Henry. And we have, as a rare treat in a Cabinet meeting, actually a short animation that lasts approximately 2 minutes that will summarise that submission.
In the very heart of the North East is the North of Tyne Combined Authority. We've been working hard, helping lots of people to get the skills and good jobs, and we'll keep on doing that. Since the pandemic started, we've been thinking about a positive future for us all. And we've looked at what's happening. Unemployment's increased. Young people have been hit really hard, and businesses in some sectors are struggling. We know that the virus has affected some people much more than others. We've already supported local businesses and the voluntary sector, and we've taken practical steps. We're bringing more money forward right now, but that's not going to be enough, so we're asking government for a lot more, because our recovery plan will deliver what you need. Keeping businesses going, having new ways of working, using technology and building on everything we've learned recently. More money means recovering, redesigning and reimagining, so that we can live in a greener and cleaner place now and look after the future for our children and grandchildren. We know that connecting with other parts of the UK is really important too. It helps us create more jobs here. We're not doing this alone. It's part of a bigger strategy for the whole of the North East, all of us working together for you. The world has been changed forever by this virus, but here, in the north of Tyne, we can come back stronger if we respond now. Our recovery plan is for everyone, no matter where you live or who you are. We've weathered many storms together in the North East. We're tough, resourceful, and we work hard. So we are working hard to unlock a great future for the people of this very special place.
Yeah, we're live again.
Thank you. Well, I think that was, not only was it a very good animation, it showed the scope of what we're doing. We all know how serious this virus has been for health and for the economy and for people's sense of security. But it's also worth focusing on that word reimagining, because this is not about going back to where we were in January. We knew we had a lot of work to do in January. We knew there were a lot of problems. But this £1.1 billion ask of government will help us to create 35,000 jobs, 14,000 training places. It's about making sure we have a future economy where there is good work, where jobs offer security, because everybody needs a healthy future, secure job, a warm house, and reliable transport. So I'll open it up for comments.
Okay.
Mayor Redfern.
Thank you, Chair. Well, can I just thank everyone who was actually involved in this report. It is excellent, to be quite honest. And I thought the cartoon, if that's what we're going to call it, was absolutely superb. It really does speak to people. And sometimes words and long reports don't reach the people that we serve. But I think that animated piece does, and it gets the warm, and it's warm, and it's honest, and it's telling them we're going to help them and work together. So I thought that was excellent. What I liked about this report is that it was picking up on what was good about the past and supporting that, but more importantly, developing the new, supporting the new and bringing new industries into the area, to be quite honest, in the fact that we can actually train our people to take on those new actually ideas that I want to bring forward. And as far as I'm concerned, to be quite honest, is that it is based on the needs of our people. And that is really, really important. And it sings, I think it sings, particularly that animated thing, sings to our people about what we're trying to do on their behalf. And together, let's be honest, we can do great things in this region. So thank you very much to everyone concerned. Well done.
Thanks, Norma. Yeah, absolutely. It is about what we can do together. This is not just about the combined authority. It's got our local authorities behind it, the universities, the business community, the whole public sector, and of course, our communities itself. Now, Councillor Sanderson, Glenn.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I think if there was ever a time when all the difficulties that we've been facing led to a lack of confidence, this would be it. But I think just for the sake of the people that have been most affected in the businesses and the industry, I think this is the right time to be very much on the front foot. And I really am genuinely very impressed with this. Even though I'm just new, I would say thank you very much to everybody that's been involved in this. It's right to be taking a strong lead for the sake of people that have been affected and our industries. I think it's right to be very ambitious, but above all, I think it's right to be very positive. And this is very positive. And so I welcome it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Was that Councillor McCarty wanting to speak? Hi, Joyce.
Thank you very much, Chair. I mean, I'll echo what our colleagues have said. I think the presentation that we've had has been excellent, and thanks to Henry for coordinating that work, not just for us north of Tyne, but he's coordinated that work across the region. And I think it's an excellent piece of work and demonstrates true ambition, but it's also a comprehensive approach, and it's very, very inclusive, which I think we are all committed to. And I think, as Norma says, the animation, I love the way Norma described that about singing to the people, because actually I think that's absolutely right. It is really, really brilliant. Chair, and I guess following Glenn, I've been involved in this from the start, so I'm not so new, but I guess that I think we're all in the same place about recognising the needs in our area and demonstrating the leadership that the Combined Authority can bring to take forward our agenda, particularly in this pandemic. And I want to pick up on something you said earlier, Chair, around the health and well-being that we're totally focused on around the pandemic is part of our economic well-being too. We know that they're so closely interrelated that it's if we can do what we can through the Combined Authority to improve the economy in the north of Tyne area, that will subsequently help with the well-being. And I think the pandemic has been really clear in identifying inequalities in our region. Chair, just to make what is an obvious point, but we want to protect jobs, we want to create jobs, we want to make sure that residents can access the skills, the training opportunities, the good work agenda, which is so core to all that we are doing. And people can't do that without the skills and those opportunities being available to them. So I think the work that's gone together to get us to this point is excellent. And let's demonstrate to government that we can clearly lead on this in our area and make a difference for the people in our region. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Joyce. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I love the idea of singing about this report, but I certainly don't have that quality of voice. But I think Councillor Forbes has wanted to speak. I understand actually is a good singer.
Although I can't promise I'm going to sing this afternoon, Chair. But thank you for that, and thank you for colleagues for comments so far, and also for the presentation itself, because what this does is really distill down two crucial elements. Firstly, our ambition and vision for the future, but secondly, our economic strengths that we can build on. And I think having that clarity of vision on both of those is really significant, both in terms of attracting new investment and persuading government that this is a place where we're willing to enter into a new partnership. And I think this does reflect a serious opportunity for government to press the reset button for our area. We know, and it's been the bedrock on which this combined authority has been built, none of us are in the business of managing economic decline. We want to take our region forward. We want to grow the economy. We want to make sure that we've got good quality jobs for everyone. And recognizing where we have unique strengths is a crucial part of understanding how we shape that economy for the future. And the other thing that I think is particularly significant is that for the first time that I've seen in my time in politics in this region, we've got a very strong coalescence of the individual submissions and asks of government through the CSR that various places are making, that the combined authorities are making, and that the LEP is making. And we've got a really joined up, integrated story and offer here, which I hope that government will find irresistible when it comes to the spending review.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Nick. Excellent points. Would anybody else like to speak to this item? Richard, Councillor Dodd.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. My first meeting. I'm a country lad, as it were. So I think everything's shifting a little bit. And in Northumberland, we see a lot of house prices on the move up over. Maybe people are readjusting. And I think that we have to probably embrace that to get some of these jobs. And I want to put a card down for maybe some look at rural business parks, which might be in that, because obviously people don't want to move around as much as they did. And we might be staring at a lot of empty office blocks. I know we all sit in offices that are not full anymore. So I think we've got to get ahead of the curve, as I keep on saying. But I welcome a big investment if we can get it. Thank you.
Thank you. No, very important points to remember that we are both an urban, a country and a coast combined authority, and we make sure we look after everybody. Thank you. Yes. Robin.
Yeah, thank you. Similar to everyone else, I think really well presented. Love the ambition and very, very excited to discuss with Henry, Ruth and the team how the voluntary sector can contribute to this ambition. But yeah, the way it's presented and the focus on people, I think as Norma was saying earlier, it's just really obvious that that's where it's coming from. So absolutely supportive and very excited about being able to share it with colleagues and start to work through what it could all mean.
Thank you, Robin. Bruce.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. It was a really good presentation, and I think it shows how far we've come in the last 18 months as a combined authority. I fully support our ambitions in this plan and the ask to the government. I think what we've seen over the last few years is the combined authorities across the country are demonstrating how they are, through their local knowledge and influence, supporting their residents and their businesses with a very local slant upon the issues that are required. Not only to recover from the crisis, but to go on and take advantage of any new opportunities and the new areas of business. In my own portfolio of economic growth, I have been impressed by the enthusiasm of our local businesses to work with us to create an inclusive and green economy, providing a brighter future for our residents. And I think this ask of government will allow us to go on and create an even better economy, a better educational system, and a better support for those people who perhaps have been missed out in the economy so far. And particularly the inclusive growth area that work that we're doing should have a beneficial and long-lasting impression upon the people of the North East.
Yeah, it's a very good point. That it is about long-term development. Would anybody else like to speak before I move us on? Thank you, everybody. The scope of this piece of work is quite significant. I received a letter some months ago from central government saying they would like me to lead on pulling together a regional economic response. And so we've included everybody, our partners in the local authorities, our partners in the other public sector, our business partners. And this sends a really clear message to government. We stand ready and united to lead us into the future economy. Thank you, everybody. So we'll move on to item 5 on the Constitution. There are a couple of items here. The first one is obviously about the updates to appointments. John Softly.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's a straightforward paper which sets out the new appointments to Cabinet and the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. And then the main report is, again, a straightforward report which proposes an expanded scheme of officer delegated decision-making powers to allow officers to make a wider range of operational decisions.
Thank you very much.
Chair, that was all I proposed to say, but if there's any questions, happy to answer.
Obviously, it's a note about the changes in appointments, and then there's the recommendation to just approve the scheme of updated delegations. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
That's agreed. Thank you. So there's been a slight change in the agenda for the benefit of anybody watching at home. So we're going to bring forward item 11, which is the portfolio update. Councillor Forbes, Nick.
Thank you very much, Chair, and apologies for the disruption to the normal running order of the agenda, but as I think everybody knows, we're in a rapidly changing situation today, and I need to go and do a few things related to the ongoing COVID crisis in the region. But I'm very proud to present this report to Cabinet today, an update on the business competitiveness portfolio, which is, as we've just been saying, and the previous couple of items, a really key area of work for our combined authority, because what we seek to do as a combined authority is bring together cross-sector innovation, entrepreneurship and investment in a more inclusive and greener economy. I think that came through very clearly in the presentation we've just heard from. But we also know that we've got a role in both supporting our economy through the COVID crisis and thinking about what the recovery stage will look like. And I think in your earlier remarks, you said that it's really important that we don't turn the clock back, but we look to the future. And we therefore need to really think about how we can accelerate our transition to an economy for the region, which is more resilient, more inclusive, and based on that overarching vision of achieving zero carbon emissions in line with the ambitions that we've all individually set out as authorities. I know that we have, as part of our investment programme, a number of proposals already in the pipeline, which we're aiming to try to bring forward for implementation to try to help affected sectors of the economy through this current crisis. But looking to the future, we know that there are 3 areas that we've decided to focus on where the investment in these will unlock huge potential and great opportunities for job creation. Firstly, our support for the digital economy. And if anybody has thought that the digital economy is not important over the last 6 months, then I really don't know what they've been doing, because it's accelerated so much change. And what we have uniquely for our combined authority compared to any other in the country is a £10 million plus programme, which includes targeted digital adoption for small businesses, helping people to get services and business processes online. That's absolutely crucial for people surviving in this new environment. But we also have focused investment in digital skills to make sure that people can access the jobs of the future, and investment in one of our key regional assets, which is the National Innovation Centre for Data, to make sure that businesses and public services can understand and benefit from the benefits of big data, which is going to be one of the major productivity gain changes looking forward to the future. So in addition to the digital investment programme, we also continue to deliver on the £12 million full fibre programme, which is making sure that sites across Northumberland are better connected. And after this Cabinet meeting, we'll be launching the £5 million call for proposals for innovative ways of supporting our existing digital businesses. And we want to grow this sector, which is already one of the fastest growing sectors in anywhere in the UK, because we know that the North of Tyne doesn't just offer the right digital community and infrastructure, but it's also an ideal place to live, work, and grow your business sustainably, surrounded by a much wider ecosystem supporting the digital economy. Secondly, the Green New Deal is a £10 million investment programme that will encourage business-led innovation to support green jobs and reduce carbon emissions. And this is a really significant part of how we restructure the economy for the future. We know that there are some sectors where we're going to see job losses. So anything that we can do to accelerate job creation, broadly associated with zero carbon and a Green New Deal, will help us mitigate against those job losses, as well as demonstrating the innovation and creativity that this region has in spades. So through this programme, we'll be backing organisations that are looking at creating new ways of working to reduce their emissions and, as I say, to create new job opportunities. We want to use the fund as an investment vehicle to build on, leveraging new money from both government and the private sector, and showing leadership in an area where we need action across the board, as well as clear policy intent, because we know that this can make a difference. As the report sets out, we've already invested in a globally relevant consortium led by Procter & Gamble to develop innovation and low-waste products for the global market, and that helps keep an R&D base here in our area. And the third strand of work running through this portfolio is our forthcoming work to support the ageing economy, based on the National Innovation Centre for Ageing on the Helix site in the centre of Newcastle. We know that as the population changes, then there are huge opportunities, as well as some challenges. A lot of these have been thrown into sharp relief through the COVID crisis. We know that our region has a unique combination of fantastic research expertise, fantastic world-class health and care services, and we're also a test bed for new ways of working. But what we've got to do next is translate all of these assets that we have, all of this credibility and capacity, into wider economic and social value. So the team is working on a bold multi-million pound proposition that will provide insights to reshape the way that health and care services work, and to develop new products and services fit for people's needs for the future. And of course, that is also heavily linked to the digital programme that I spoke about a few minutes ago, bringing together the centres of excellence that can create great research and insight into real business and public service interventions that benefit all of our communities. And I expect to be able to bring firmer proposals back to the Cabinet later this autumn. So, Chair, just in conclusion, this portfolio is clearly not a standalone portfolio, as none of our portfolios are. But what it does do is demonstrate that over the last 18 months, we've made significant progress in areas where we have real economic strength, shaping the market, preparing ourselves for Brexit, and preparing ourselves for recovery post-COVID, building a new economy for our region, which is genuinely based on those values of zero carbon and a more inclusive economy. So I recommend this report to Cabinet, Chair, and look forward to working with colleagues to keep driving this forward as part of our commitment to economic renewal across our region. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Nick. I certainly welcome this report. And I think it's worth saying that often members of the public that see these reports, these spending ambitions, this is already happening. We've already put in place one of the things you've spoken about that high-tech development with global corporates deciding to invest in the North of Tyne. Today, as Bruce, Councillor Pickard will go through later, is the Innovation Centre for Data, the National Innovation Centre for Data Investment, our £5 million digital call. And of course, this is on top of our existing work in terms of the offshore industry. This really is about developing the future of our economy. Does anybody have any questions or comments on Nick's report? Did I see a hand there? No, Nick, you have done such a comprehensive report that everybody wishes you well in your upcoming media interview.
Great. Thank you very much, Jamie. Thanks, colleague.
Thank you very much, Nick. So this takes us on to the next item. Councillor Pickard is going to run us through the investment fund update and the various funding approvals. Bruce.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. The North of Tyne Investment Fund report shows our progress with 38.62 million committed to nearly 50 projects, over 100 million of private sector investment and a forecasted 2,732 jobs. I spoke at our last cabinet meeting about the pandemic and the pressure on people's jobs and livelihoods. The outlook, as we are all too aware, has worsened, with rising numbers of infection rates and deaths across the country. Here in the North of Tyne, while our local authorities are working tirelessly to keep people safe, we as a combined authority will continue to bring forward projects and programmes that create a brighter future for our residents and our communities. We've heard from Dr. Kipping about our bid to government. We are preparing for a redesigned and reimagined future that is inclusive, greener and better, a future that works for us all. To do that, this Cabinet has agreed to support key sectors: digital, clean growth, and culture and creativity. These sectors are vital for our recovery. We have all witnessed in the last 6 months the unprecedented growth in our reliance on digital, whether this is for keeping in touch with family and friends, working from home, for our education, and the massive take-up of digital business. So we need to support SMEs who adopt digital technologies to improve their skills and their productivity. With 750,000 over the next 3 years and private sector co-investment, our digital catapult will support 230 SMEs, creating 30 new jobs, safeguarding a further 50 jobs, and leveraging £500,000 of private sector investment. Ensuring our SMEs get digital adoption support where they need it to grow their businesses and to keep on hiring. We need to develop an ecosystem for the digital sector that supports the growth of existing and new business, showcases the sector in the North of Tyne, both inside and outside the region, improves access to advanced data analytics, improves skills, and obviously increases digital adoption. We need businesses to survive and then thrive, trading online under new and emerging technologies, and particularly with products and innovations. To achieve this, we will be funding the National Innovation Centre for Data in partnership with Newcastle University, and this will provide a suite of investments that ensure we are ahead of the game. From basic digital skills and digital inclusion for traditional lower paid sectors to high-end support for our major businesses to access new markets, increase data skills, and benefit from the research in the region. This is an innovation and productivity hand in hand. Over 220 businesses will be supported, actively turning university-based expertise into interventions that directly benefit business, public services, and civil society. It is my ambition for us to become the North of Tyne's hub for data analytics, developing the capability for cross-sector commissioning, understanding the wider social, economic, and health impacts of our investments. Mayor, data is the future, so our ability to innovate and to be creative will be the difference between taking the lead and falling behind. Creativity is key to growth, and reimagining our futures after this pandemic means supporting creativity and innovation wherever we can. We have now actioned our Culture and Creative Recovery Fund, 3.25 million for cultural and creative organisations to develop real plans for post-COVID economy. As we adopt the digital future and transform the way we power our world, we begin to tackle climate change, transforming for a cleaner and greener future. Modern technologies, creativity, our environment, together have immense potential for our recovery. This is mirrored exactly in the offshore wind and subsea infrastructure programme, making 6.5 million available to support the growth of clean energy in the North East, investing in infrastructure and strengthening the capacity of our ports and quays, and also to provide research and supply chains. And in the Green New Deal Fund, we will make further investments in green growth, working with our partners, including the CBI and the Chambers, stimulating innovation and business growth in heat decarbonisation, energy efficiency through renewables and energy systems, low carbon transport, and natural capital. We will give more support for the low carbon sector, bringing forward a place-based approach to reducing emissions, delivering inclusive growth and support for a green economy. But we cannot reap the rewards of these sectors without our people having the skills that they need and they deserve. Later in the meeting, my colleague, Councillor Joyce McCarthy, will tell us how, under her leadership, we'll create life-changing support for our residents, young and old. Our employability and skills programme and our plans for skill and growth complement her work perfectly, both enabling good quality local employment support to up to 4,000 residents in Northumberland, North Tyneside and Newcastle, and supporting the reskilling and retraining of our workforce as the labour market is reshaped in the months ahead. Our combined authority will put in place the right programmes to get our business and our people ready to grasp the opportunities in the months and years to come. Programmes that will deliver an inclusive and green economy that embraces the power of digital opportunity. Doing what only we can do to focus on our economy of our people and to create a better future for the North of Tyne. May I recommend this report to Cabinet? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bruce. That is an excellent report. Just a couple of observations. One, it finally puts to bed any doubt that anybody has that concern about the environment is in some way bad for the economy. Let's just look at the substance in this. This future economy that we're building everything on, 2,732 jobs. Our target from government over 5 years was 1,670. We've got 46 projects there. We've been going for about 18 months. That's more than one project a fortnight. And when you look from the outside at something like a combined authority to the members of the public, they tend to see us as the mouthpieces of what's going on. But the amount of work that goes on behind the scenes, just want to say a thank you to all of the officers, all of the partners and the constituent authority. This is a huge amount of work to get more than a project a fortnight to create those 2,732 jobs. Has anybody got any questions or comments on Councillor Pickard's report?
Chair, Mayor.
Please.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to thank Councillor Pickard and all those officers on an amazing, excellent report, to be quite honest. I look back 18 months ago when we decided to come together and remember all the doubt and the scorn that was about why would we want to come together? What was the sense of that? Well, all we've been hearing from today from Nick Forbes as well on his report, and Bruce there actually demonstrates why we came together. To be quite honest, I think we have achieved such a great deal, and for a long time, you know, we've just been working away quietly, but now it's pretty public by these reports of all the work that's gone on, what we have achieved, and we will be making more things happen. So well done to both of them. Much appreciated, Chair.
Thank you very much, Donna. Does anybody else have any questions? Robin?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just to say that it's been really interesting, particularly during the pandemic, to see how a whole range of organisations have started to adopt different digital techniques, both to support their communities, but actually to sustain their work, maintain and create new jobs. And really excited to see how some of the work that Digital Catapult are going to be leading could also enhance the work of the voluntary sector and social enterprises across the combined authority. So it's a conversation that I've started having with some of the officers and really keen to support that as well. So thank you.
Thanks, Robin. So there's a number of recommendations in this report. There's first of all to note the progress that's been made, the various milestones and ongoing development work. And I'm sure that we are all agreed on that.
Great.
Thank you. But then it takes us to know the progress in relation to the Digital Growth and Innovation Programme, which is agreed, I hope. Now, the specific substantive items is to approve the funding of 1.6 million to fund the National Innovation Centre for Data project in recommendation 3. Is that agreed?
Yep.
Agreed, yes.
Thank you. To endorse the approach recommended by Investment Panel for the project, set out in section 7.2 of the report. A very quick plug-in of the laptop before I disappear. So that's section 4. Is that agreed with the overall budget of 5 million for the digital sector allocation? Agreed. And note progress in points 5 about the employability and skills programme that's detailed in section 2.8 of the report. That's agreed. Agreed, thank you. Which takes us to recommendation 6. I said this was a very big update. the note the progress made in the Skills for Growth Fund and authorise the head of paid service as laid out in section 2.9 of the report.
Agreed.
Thank you. We're nearly there. Section 7, to note the progress in relation to the bringing online the Green New Deal Fund set out in section 2.10. That agreed? Thank you. And final one, to authorise the head of paid service to finalise the necessary conditions as laid out in recommendation 8. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. You know, when you've got that many recommendations, there's an awful lot of work being done.
Yeah.
So this takes us on to item 7, the Brownfield Housing Fund, which Norma Redfern is going to introduce.
Thank you very much, Mayor. This paper outlines an approach taken by officers with regards to the Brownfield Housing Fund. This is a 24 million fund devolved to the combined authority to bring brownfield land back into use for housing. It is our fund to direct as we see fit towards the sites that are local authorities and that are priorities. We are expected to enable the development of around 2,000 new homes for local people as a result of this funding. At the heart of this has been a huge amount of collaboration between the 3 local authorities. They've worked hard to put forward these sites that are important to the local authorities and will have the most benefit for our local residents, and that's extremely important, as you know. This is a good start on pushing forward the combined authorities' housing ambitions, working with Homes England, our local authorities, and wider partners to turbocharge our plans to make North of the Tyne a fantastic place to live and work in and to visit. The paper emphasises a balanced picture of projects to the 5-year Brownfield Housing Fund programme. The projects within the pipeline need to be both robust and credible. And I have to assure you that officers have spent a lot of time building the pipeline to ensure this. An initial pipeline of projects has been identified and work is underway to assess it. The fully confirmed pipeline will be taken to the Housing and Land Board and Investment Panel in due course for final approval. These projects that can be brought forward quickly are currently being written up as formal business cases by the local authorities for submission in the autumn. This will help the combined authority to actually meet our target of spending £5 million before the end of the financial year, which is really important. These projects will be considered by the investment panel in November, with spending by the local authorities, well, all being well, commencing on the agreed sites in December. And I would like to say, Chair, for me, and I'm sure everyone else, this is really good news for the area. First of all, get rid of some of our ugly eyesores that have been around for some time. But more importantly, it will provide excellent homes which are much needed for our residents. So this is a really good news story. Thank you very much. And thanks to the office for officers for all the work they've been doing on this. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Norma. Yes, echo those points. And the thing that I would add, perhaps, which not everybody at home realises, is this is additional funding that we've secured as a combined authority because we came together as a combined authority. Otherwise, all of those eyesores, all of those houses that are going to be built wouldn't be happening. Does anybody have any questions for Mayor Redfern or any comments on the report? No, yet again, Norma, nailed it first time.
Good. That's really good. Good. Thank you.
There are a number of recommendations there. First of all, I'm sure we know the progress made in bringing the devolved housing fund online. That's agreed, I take it. The substantive items to authorise the head of paid service in consultation with the investment panel, the Housing and Land Board, and myself as the Mayor, to agree the North of Tyne Brownfield housing programme. Is that agreed? That's agreed. Thank you very much. And then subsequent to that, to authorise the interim head of paid service in consultation again with the parties laid out there with the programme. Is that agreed? That's point 3. And point 4, to authorise the interim head of paid service to finalise the conditions for the funding awards and to authorise the monitoring officer to complete the necessary documentation. Is that all agreed? Thank you. Yeah, that is the nature of democracy, that we have to go through these items line by line. So this moves us on to item 8, which is the Inclusive Economy Innovation Fund. This item will be introduced by portfolio holder, Councillor Joyce McCarthy.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I'm really pleased to bring an update really on our plans for rolling out the Inclusive Economy Innovation Fund across our region. Chair, we all know that we've set out a really ambitious agenda to deliver a more inclusive economy in the North of Tyne area. And that means that all of our work needs to support the recovery, growth and prosperity of our economy, with a significant focus on ensuring that that's done in an equitable way. So the fund that, the report that's in front of us, the Innovation Fund that we're setting out in this paper, represents a significant step in delivering on that ambition. It gives us an opportunity to build a coalition across different sectors, particularly including, hopefully, social investors who share our ambition for our region. It provides us with an opportunity to build that coalition, and I guess the focus of our work is that the people who engage with us share our vision, want to create the jobs that we're trying to create, that are good jobs, and ensure that more people from our communities can participate in and benefit more fairly from the local economy. So, Chair, we've set out in this paper an investment from the Combined Authority of up to £12 million. We're hoping that through co-investment, that might be levered to as much as £50 million. Councillor Pickard talked about the match that we've had through some of the investments in his report today. This would be a significant amount of money and therefore make a huge difference to opportunities in our region. Chair, I do think it's more critical than ever in the light of the pandemic that we get as much resource to support new jobs and a more social economy, offering opportunities for reskilling to residents, retraining opportunities into new occupations. We heard a little bit about that from Councillor Forbes earlier. If we're wanting to support those groups of residents who've been hardest hit through this, through the economic impacts of COVID, then this will be part of the solution that we're offering across our region. And so I think that means that we're prioritising support and opportunities in the right place. I think the report is fairly straightforward and clear, Chair, so I hope that's enough to give an overview of what we're trying to do. And we'll get this bid, we'll get this opportunity out there and see what comes back from the offer that we're making. Thank you very much, Chair. And I'm asking Cabinet to support the recommendations, which I know you'll now go through. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Joyce. Yeah, this is a very good report. Thank you. I think I personally just want to highlight that, at a time of difficulty like this, there's a lot of people uncertain, not sure what the next regulations is. And I just want to pick out one of the principles of this, that it's about citizen engagement, that this is about doing things with people and not to people. And that underpins everything we're doing. Does anybody have any questions for Joyce on this report or anything they would like to comment on? And if not, I'll move on to the recommendations. First recommendation is to note the progress, which is, I hope, agreed. Just a nod will do on this one. Thank you. And to authorise the head of paid service in consultation with the portfolio holder, Chris McCarthy, to finalise the next steps taking forward the fund, including the prospectus. Is that agreed? That is a substantive item. Thank you. And to welcome the consideration by the investment panel of a future report setting out the delivery and operational processes associated with the fund once it's finalised. Obviously, there will be consultation and co-investment in that. Is that agreed? Thank you very much. So this takes us on to item 9, which is supporting young people into employment through Kickstart and youth hubs. And yet again, it's Councillor McCarthy to introduce the report.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think this report is, all of the reports that are before us today are talking about progress and impact and the things that we can do collectively. But out of all of them, young people are potentially the hardest hit through this pandemic. And so I think this report is setting aside some funding from the Combined Authority to make sure that we're doing the right things for our young people to help them. It's also about supporting the government's Kickstart scheme and the government's approach to youth hubs. And maybe before going into the content of the report, Chair, we ought to say that any funding that comes from government would not, we would not use Combined Authority funding to duplicate that. All of our funding would enhance whatever comes from government. And Chair, a number of us have made the comment today about the pandemic and the unprecedented increase in unemployment. Our concerns about young people in particular who've had a really difficult summer, many of them losing education opportunities, losing the opportunity to take their exams. We've had the fiasco of the exam results. Young people have been really, really hard hit over the summer. And we know that the most vulnerable and disadvantaged young people will have been the hardest hit of all. Previous recessions have told us that young people feel the impacts hardest first, and actually it takes the longest time for them really to recover. And so I think the investment that we're proposing today is to address that issue. So we think the long-term scarring impacts will be quite significant. Our aspiration is to provide all young people with good job opportunities, to enable them to build their skills both in and out of the workplace, and to allow them to gain the experience that will improve their chances of going on to find long-term and sustainable work. I think for us, that's about joining our good jobs approach to work and making sure that they're supported not just in their wage, but in the opportunities that come from that work too. Chair, the Kickstart scheme and the development of youth hubs will allow us as a combined authority, working of course with our partners in the local authorities, to add value to the resources that come from elsewhere. Other resources will come from the private, from the public, and from the voluntary sector communities. And that together, collectively, will ensure that young people across our areas, across our 3 local authority areas, will have access to a supply of local opportunities, enhanced advice, support and training that they will need to help them to recover from the current crisis. Chair, for me, the focus of this is about having, I want to say a one-stop shop. That's not really quite what we need, but we need an approach that offers one route in, so that actually our young people aren't searching everywhere to find the opportunity that's right for them. And I think the collective work that we're proposing through this report means that we can offer that. And I think the collaborative work with the, with our excellent team in North of Tyne, alongside the teams working in our local authorities, means we can deliver this in the very best possible way to support our young people. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Joyce. I mean, this is such a key piece of work at a time like this, when we know what's happening with unemployment, when we know, when the Chancellor acknowledges that, he can't be saving all the jobs no matter what happens from central government. And this is about us adding on to that scheme to give people every opportunity. And I just want to echo that point, that if you're a young person, you've lost a job or you're unable to find a job, it's extremely confusing. You don't have a lot of experience behind you. So we do everything we can to give them the very best service so that they can be the very best they can and get themselves onto a career ladder. Does anybody have any questions or comments on this item?
I'd like to comment, Chair.
Please.
Yeah, I just would like to say, well done, a great report once again. But I think the development of youth hubs is absolutely vital to our young people, to be quite honest. As you say, quite often they're sent to everywhere to tell the same story over and over again. But if they go to a youth hub where all the expertise is there that they need at the outset, that will sort of stop them having a really difficult time in moving forward. But not only that, I think it will prevent, well, the council and the people concerned of losing track of these people. Because quite often when they go somewhere, they get frustrated because they don't get the answer they want straight away. And then they go off and we lose them, to be quite honest. And they don't actually get a very sort of satisfying future in front of them. So I think the youth hubs are absolutely fantastic. And I appreciate the fact that many of our young people are now leaving school, as you know, with very little future ahead of them. And this is essential to help them move forward and provide the necessary expertise that they need. And of course, we are trying to create those jobs, and Joyce is trying to provide the training. So having these youth hubs is really important. That fits in with everything else. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Absolutely right. We need to be helping young people into work, not setting them a test of endurance to find work.
Yeah.
Indeed. Is anybody else? Robin, yes, please.
Yeah, I think to echo what Joyce was saying, I think there's some really, really exciting stuff here. I think the Kickstart programme, the fact that the North of Tyne Combined Authority are looking to supplement and make better an offer there by increased kind of wraparound support for young people is absolutely brilliant. I really welcome the proposal that the North of Tyne becomes the intermediary to enable smaller organisations to be able to host young people. And I think if there's a way of joining the Kickstart up with the youth hubs, with the DWP framework stuff, I think there's such a great opportunity to offer a really meaningful offer to young people, but it also brings together a whole range of partners that may not have worked much together so far. But yeah, I think it's really, really good.
Thank you very much, Robin. And Richard, please.
Yeah, I think we don't know how deep the hole is that we're in. And I'd say that it might be a long time before we know that. But I think I welcome everything that will give everybody a little bit of a nudge up if we can achieve that, because as I say, we get asked constantly, when is this pandemic going to end? And I don't think anybody can ever answer that. Maybe the youth can help themselves a bit by helping us end the pandemic. I don't know how we do that, but everyone's got to take some role. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Richard. And I can't see any more indications. So we'll move through the recommendations. Obviously, some significant spending commitments here, so we'll run through them formally. The first recommendation is to support the proposed approach to the Kickstart scheme. Is that agreed? That's agreed, thank you. The second recommendation is to support the development of youth hubs in collaboration with our constituent local authorities, Job Centre Plus and wider partners. Is that agreed? I see lots of nods, thank you, that's agreed. Third recommendation is to allocate up to £500,000 from the Inclusive Economy Innovation Fund, subject to the business case, and supports our role, NTCA, as the representative intermediary body for the Kickstart scheme. Is that agreed? That's agreed, yes, actually lots of nods there. The fourth item is to allocate £400,000, up to £400,000 from the Inclusive Economy Innovation Fund, again subject to the full business case, to co-invest alongside the Department of Work and Pensions into a youth hub as detailed in the report. That's agreed, thank you. And the final one is to authorise the Head of Paid Service in consultation with the investment panel and portfolio holder to consider the appropriate business cases as above. Is that agreed? Thank you very much. This takes us on to item 10 on adult education budget devolution. And surprise, surprise, Councillor Joyce McCartney to introduce it again. Keeping you busy this afternoon, Joyce.
Thank you, Chair. We do have a few reports from my portfolio this afternoon, so apologies for that. But they're all on separate items, so it wouldn't have been fair to put them all into one report. Chair, I think all three of the reports that I'm bringing to Cabinet demonstrate the value of devolution for us all. You know, we previously accepted the report and the proposals around how we would spend the 23 million adult education budget devolution to make a difference in our area. So the report that is before us today develops that further, really, given that we've been allocated further resource as a devolved combined authority to support sector-based academy programmes and high-value courses that the Chancellor announced earlier. Chair, this report is just enabling us gives us the opportunity to make commissioning decisions on a place-based approach and a kind of forward-looking basis, building on all of the work that we've done to set up the original adult education budget. So all of that work through the commissioning and procurement process over the year has helped us to understand better where we think this additional fund will secure better outcomes for residents and businesses. And this is about ensuring greater participation in qualifications that are valued, but also linked directly to the opportunities that are provided in our area. And in a way, it's the framework that took place as opposed to the work that we've just done over the last month. It's all of the work that we've done over the whole year, really, that helps us to put forward these proposals today. So we know that the pandemic, the impact of the pandemic is being monitored with all of the providers of adult education that are currently being funded. We're trying to support that kind of collaborative approach with education providers and stakeholders. And I think a colleague said earlier that actually we don't really know where we are in relation to things. Might have been Councillor Dodd who was saying that, you know, we're not really totally sure what we're in. And don't really know how we can get out of it collectively. So we've got to do what we can with the levers that we have. So I think that that kind of evolving situation means that it's even more important that we can respond swiftly to the needs in the area and focus our work in support of that inclusive economic recovery. So I've mentioned that we had the £23 million. So we were allocated just over £900,000 to support the Chancellor's announcements about sector-based work academy programmes, which is a bit of a jargony term, but it's actually, I think the report sets that out really clearly, what we mean by that, and what are called high-value courses. This is really, really important to support young people in what is a very, very turbulent time, but it gives additional resources and additional opportunities to our providers to demonstrate the impact that we can make with what is truly devolved responsibilities. I'm very pleased to bring this report along today, Chair. Again, a huge sum of money that we're allocating, so it's really important that we're supporting it this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Trace. And can I say, never apologise for working hard. So yeah, I mean, this is a very, very unstable time for a lot of people. I think it's very important that not only are we providing this, is that I know the amount of work that's gone on to make sure that these courses are continuing to be delivered, even considering all the issues to do with social distances. It's very important that we're here studying the ship in these times. Does anybody have any questions or comments on this report?
Yes, Chair.
Please, Nomia.
Mayor, I was just wondering, these courses are going on, and I was wondering, to be quite honest, are we monitoring them in the sense that, are we getting feedback from what's happening? How are they received by the people who are volunteering or people who are enrolling on these courses? Because I think that's really important to hear how the people sort of who are taking part actually are benefiting from this.
Chair, do you want me to?
Please do, yeah.
I mean, clearly it's very early days because our funding started from August. So we are less than 2 months into providing this. But I know that the team who are employed in the Combined Authority are in regular communication with all of our providers to make sure that they're recruiting the students that are seeking these opportunities, to make sure that they've got the right facilities. Chair, we will recall that we have invested in digital support for some people who were doing that kind of blended digital learning, couldn't access face-to-face learning. So we've invested a little bit in that. We may well need to revisit that if the pandemic means that our adult education providers are unable to do as much face-to-face as they've got planned. We may need to review that. I think it's a bit early to say, but what we could offer is maybe in a couple of months to look at the first quarter and just see how how our providers are doing, and maybe we could do that update informally, Chair, at some meeting in the future.
Thank you, Councillor McCartney, because that's really good to know, because in the past we have had a lot of criticism for some of the courses that have been sort of afforded or delivered by the DWP and various people. So I think that's good news that this is going on. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Yeah, very good point, Norma. And that is one of the benefits of devolution, of course, is not only can we allocate it, we can monitor it and make sure it is serving the needs of our people. So I'm sure Cabinet would very much welcome that offer, Councillor McCartney, to have an informal update, indeed. So in the absence of anybody else indicating, we have a couple of recommendations there. First of all, to note the performance management arrangements in place, which I'm hoping is agreed. Thank you. And then substantially to authorise the head of paid service in consultation with the appropriate cabinet member, Joyce, to approve both the contract for services and grant providers as detailed. That's agreed. Thank you very much. So we had item 11 earlier, which was the portfolio update for business competitiveness, which is about to move us on to item 12. But just before we do that, we've had an unusually long cabinet meeting because there's been so much going on. And I know I thank the officers for all the work they put in earlier, but I'd just like to thank my cabinet colleagues, every one of whom, and excuse if it's your first meeting, of course, but everybody who's put so much work into all of these things, you know, and it's not like you're not busy people. So thank you personally for the amount of work you do. So let's move on to item 12, which is the financial planning and budget process, which is our Chief Financial Officer, Janice Gillespie.
Thank you, Chair. This report outlines that we are at the stage where we need to begin to develop an update to our 21-22 budget proposals and further plan and add a further year to the four-year financial plan. So the report principally sets out kind of the key timelines and the key approaches that we'll take developing the budget. I guess what I would say, all of the reports prior to this particular report today set out an awful lot of the work that, as you say, the authority has been delivering over the last, since it was started. And clearly the financial plan and budget necessarily reflect this degree of activity, and we'll see the budget continue to grow as the authority has taken on more responsibilities. So I think at this stage, Chair, it's just for Cabinet to agree to the timelines, and we'll continue to work through producing draft budget proposals for Cabinet to consider.
Thank you very much, Janice. Yeah, so unless anybody has any questions on this, I propose also that we approve the budget and financial planning process as laid out in the report. Is that agreed? Yeah, thank you. If at any point anybody does have a question, please do just speak up. So this takes us on to item number 13, which is the North East Local Enterprise Partnership and the funding decisions update. For the benefit of anybody still watching at home, you may not be aware that the North of Tyne Combined Authority is what is called the accountable body for the North East LEP, in the sense that we are the ones who undertake the necessary legal processes. So that's Janice again, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, as you've said, this report is an information report, clearly, that sets out the funding decisions that the Local Enterprise Partnership has taken since April. As accountable body, John Softly as monitoring officer and myself as Chief Finance Officer are absolutely involved in oversight of those funding decisions as part of our role to ensure that they are appropriate and carried out with appropriate due diligence and governance in the LEP, which indeed they are. And this report simply sets out the schedule of decisions that have been made since the beginning of April, when we became accountable body. In addition, as you mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, there is now a new chair for the North East LEP who was in the meeting today, Lucy Winskill, and this is to formally appoint Lucy onto Cabinet as part of the Constitution requirements. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Anybody got any questions for Janice on this? That looks like a no. So we have a couple of recommendations. First of all, to note the report, which provides the information on the work and funding decisions of the LEP, which I'm sure that we duly note. And the second is to formally appoint Lucy Winskill as the new North East LEP chair, as the member of our cabinet in line with our constitution. So, massive moment of tension here. Do we formally know? Welcome, Lucy.
Thank you. I've kept uncharacteristically quiet this afternoon, Chair, just in case things didn't go well on that item, but I'm not getting stuck in from this point in.
Thank you. You'd be very, very welcome member of the team. So with that, thank you. If anybody is actually still watching at home, I'll be very impressed. The date and time of the next meeting, it will be a virtual meeting again on Google Meet, but for the public, streamed on YouTube, and that will be at 2 p.m. on the 24th of November 2020. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. Thank you for attending, everybody. Stay safe.